Trump turmoil on tariffs. Is separatism a thing? Canada spends like crazy on consultants, and of course, so much on election 2025 as things heat up as we're getting really close to the big day on April 28th. I'm Jim Check with Now Media. With me on the phone, Ian Burns in our nation's capital. Beautiful day here in the Okanagan. Traffic moving greatly. A nice sunny day. How is it looking in Ottawa?
It's a bit misty. I would say it's pretty grey, and I think it's about 5 degrees right now, so it's not much of anything really.
Well, that's a big change from the other day. 5 degrees is better than minus 13.
I tell you, for people that don't know, Ottawa's climate is literally insane. It's like it was invented by somebody that had lost their mind, because that will happen. It will go from like minus 15 to 30 degrees in the space of a couple of days. It's
Well,
completely bizarre, this city.
well, what Ottawa has in common then is Donald Trump and the turmoil and the markets with his tariffs. Because like
Yeah.
down 1,000, up 2,000, now again this morning down about 1,600 points. Talk about whipsaw effects. Sounds like the Ottawa weather. Up, down, up,
Yeah.
down, up, down. If you know how to play the game, you could be making so much money. Um, if you don't, you could be losing so much money. It's likely one of the biggest transfers of wealth going on right now with this whipsaw effect. So, again, we talked about it yesterday. If you have stocks you like, these could be some of the biggest opportunities ever as this whipsaw continues in the stock market. So, Donald Trump, this all has to do with this is a tweet that he put out there, or whatever he calls it, a truth social or something like that. Based on the lack of respect that China has shown to world markets, he raises the tariffs on China by 125%, effective immediately. China will realize the days of ripping off the U.S. So, he goes on and on and on. It's typical stuff, right? And he paused tariffs worldwide. The only two countries that he didn't pause tariffs on, and we have a Dan McTeague tweet here. If we can put up that tweet there from Dan McTeague, former Liberal MP, is on Canada and China.
Well, and also Mexico. I don't know why you missed off Mexico
There you go. Um, there you go. So Dan McTeague is doesn't have great things to say about his party. He has been coming out against his Liberal Party for quite a while now. We've interviewed him in the past as well.
He's all in on the Conservatives now. He's quite vociferous, quite a rare specimen in the Canadian political scene. That he doesn't have the world famous Canadian politeness, which often manifests as a kind of timidity, doesn't it? But that's not a problem that Dan McTeague has. He's come out and he's often very upset with older people, the older generations, which it seems, according to the polls, are leaning very strongly towards the Liberals. And he's been raising his voice about that, talking about the betrayal of the youth and all that kind of thing. But he's wrong here. I mean, also Mexico, our good friends, the Mexicans, don't forget them. But it is, I mean, like we've said many, many times, obviously China, there's a reason that China is behaving the way it is. China's the number two in the world, pretty much. It's the challenger. It's the young lion that wants to take over the pride from the US. So obviously there's a completely different calculus involved for them, and that's why they're doing what they're doing. They have their own reasons for it. And then with Canada, there's an obvious reason why Canada's hit back as well, because America has tried or has claimed that it wants to try and annex this country. So, I mean, obviously you're going to get a reaction when you do that kind of thing. And the rest of the world is kind of just stood there. They're almost like bystanders. We really are the protagonists, aren't we? The Canadians and the Chinese. Those are the two protagonists in this demented delusion that Donald Trump is experiencing.
Yeah, and there's some people out there saying that he paused the tariffs on the world because the Japanese started dumping treasury bills, and I guess he has to be careful because the Chinese own about $1 trillion worth of their UST bills as well.
That seems to be the received wisdom, doesn't it? Because it was pushing about 5%, I believe. Or did it actually surpass 5%, the 10-year yield?
Hmm.
Which is what they use. They use that for all kinds of things, don't they? Like mortgages and things like that. That's what happened, if you remember, to Liz Truss when she was chased out of power in Britain, with the lettuce and everything, and how the lettuce outlived her. That was that was because the bond markets went crazy, and there was something to do with the pension system as well in Britain, which is like sort of an
There's almost a
arcane, weird system that they have in the
yeah,
UK. But the bond markets went bananas,
almost a
and
full blown crisis there in the UK over that.
yeah. But I mean, I'm always a bit sort of suspicious about received wisdom, and it does seem to be almost universally understood now that it was the bonds that made Trump back down. But I don't know. I mean, I'll wait and see a more thoughtful analysis, I think.
A businessman says that we look a little stupid with all these tariffs, counter tariffs, and it actually hurts Canadians. And that is what many other countries say. Well, actually, we've been advertising. Canadian government's been advertising in the states with billboards saying tariffs hurt you, and yet we did counter tariffs. So I guess we want to hurt ourselves as well.
Well, it was supposed to be what did they say? Like surgical tariffs, I believe that was, or
And that,
surgically targeted. I believe that was the language used by both Carney and Trudeau. That in theory can work. I mean, that's economics 101. Like it really can work if you target a product that the Americans bring to the market that is very, very easy to replace. And there are lots of items that sort of meet that description. So it was theoretically possible to do it. But this chap here, Louis Lafleur, who's got an excellent Quebec name, his argument here is that it's not easy to replace what he uses because he uses a special kind of wood to make products. And he's saying that now every time he tries to get that wood, it's like 25% tax on top of that. That is pretty foolish then. It sounds like maybe they hadn't considered the possibility that there would be some items affected here that are not easy to replace. That's the last thing you want to do.
and then Canadian travelers keeping their distance from the U.S. That was once our top destination as the tensions grow between the two nations. And we saw that fall, and we've seen that even with our local airlines here, not local, our airline traffic here, that people are making less trips to the U.S. One part of that likely though is the expense, like the Canadian dollar as well.
I'd
But
say
they
that's
did,
playing into it a bit, but I
yeah.
just even again the classic measure of whether a thing is true or not, whether the hype is true, for me at least, is there any evidence of this in my own experience in my own life? And the answer is yes. I know quite a lot of people who
Yeah.
aren't going to go to the US. And I was considering going down to Vermont, and it's like, do I really want to go to America? Like I'm not sure I do. So
And,
that's even me. It's close. It's that close for me. So I do. The
and a lot
stats concord with reality here, I think.
and a lot of people getting grief at the border too, and that's caused a lot of people to say, I don't really need that extra stress and grief and questioning. And there's been a couple of stories out there that actually, I think one young lady put in jail for a bit.
Yeah, I mean the US border agents can be you know, appalling, just just awful people on the best of times.
Yeah.
So now that there's this added tension and craziness, do you really want to run the risk of encountering some little Hitler in a suit there who will ruin your life and take your phone off you and all the rest of it? Like, no thanks.
Separatism, is it a real thing? And CTV did a story on it. And I've read a few pieces on this for sure. And they're saying it's a lot more difficult than you think. And I mean, I've been, again, this is from personal experience. I've been reached out on LinkedIn, and some people have said that a lot of conservatives in Alberta are going to vote Liberal so that the Liberals do win so that they can push for separatism. But it's a lot tougher than most people think.
Well, it is with it like this academic. This whole story is an interview with an academic who's talking about things as they are and as they have previously been. There's no real there's no real look at how things might change. Whenever there's a separation occurs or a civil war or anything like that in history, history is your guide here, not the rules that are on the books right now. That's just like I think that's a distraction. It's a waste of time. History is a better guide. And when things like this happen, almost invariably there isn't a majority. that doesn't usually happen. Like we were talking a couple of days ago about how America became a country. About 30%, about one third of the population of America is estimated to have wanted to be independent, but they still did it. It's all about events. It's about the motivation of the people that want it to happen. And I'm sure if events transpired in a certain way, and a group of highly motivated people in Alberta, for example, really push the right buttons, then it could happen. It doesn't matter what the law says, what matters is what people do and what happens in the world. So I wouldn't be so complacent, and I think this professor has maybe been guilty of that. I think there's a very real prospect that it could happen, actually.
My answer back to these people on LinkedIn is like, don't give up on Canada. Like you shouldn't be voting to the other way just so you can leave Canada. I think you should try to fight for Canada. It's worth fighting for.
Well, their perspective, these people, the ones that are like the hardcore um, secessionists or whatever you want to call them, their perspective is that Alberta's like tried for a very long time now, sort of like 50 or 60 years, and they've dealt with, the previous Trudeau, then this latest Trudeau, and now there's a risk that Carney is going to be just as bad. I mean, that's Danielle Smith actually says he looks worse. So, I mean, from their perspective, it's kind of like we've given this half a century or something like that, and it hasn't got better. So we're off skis. But, we'll have to see whether that's going to resonate as an idea.
Somebody just accused us of deleting comments. I can assure you we're not deleting any comments. You would need to talk to YouTube about that. They have filters that run likely that just it just hides itself based on YouTube, not us. So there you go. Holly
And
Don't story.
good luck talking to YouTube because they
Yeah.
won't answer anything that you ask them.
Hey, we talked about that before. YouTube is like God. You know it's there. You can talk all you want, but never answers back. How's that?
Yeah.
There you go. Canada loves spending money on consultants. The Holly Dome Blacklock story. Like we spend a ton of money on. The Department of Employment said it tripled spending on consultants in a single year to $311 million because no employee was available. The department has 34,000 employees. There you go.
It's just such a good time to be a consultant, really, isn't it? And that sounds like it sounds like these people are like high and mighty and glorious and powerful and all the rest of it, but in many cases, they're just like totally ordinary people that have set themselves up and as consultants. And it's just like, okay. I
It,
mean, and a lot of the time as well, like McKinsey and these KPMG, Deloitte, all these companies here that are listed down there a lot of the time, like, I mean, when I graduated from university, and I knew quite a few people who went to work for those companies, they're just kids. Like, they don't know anything. They don't know a thing. And like, you're gonna pay a huge amount of money just to get some naive child, somebody 25-year-old recently out of university to come and consult. They don't even know what they're doing.
yeah, so spending in 2023 on leading consultants tripled from 93 million to 311 million. It's a good time to be a consultant with the Liberal government. There you go. And that was and the consultants are Accenture. And there's a whole bunch of names, but the one that is very commonly known as a consultant for the Canadian government is the U.S. outfit of McKinsey and Co. They spend so much money with McKinsey and Co. Again, a U.S. company.
And then these other ones are British, I think, aren't they? Like Deloitte, I believe, is British.
Perhaps they should see if they can get the government employees to come back to work full time in the office, and maybe they won't have to spend so much money on consultants. They're like the rest of the people that have to go to work every day.
Indeed, or maybe just, hire people that can actually do the job rather than having to get random outsiders to come in and not fix it. It's all that's the other thing as well. It's like you're spending all this money on these outside consultants to come in, and then things do not improve. So what are we
Yeah.
supposed to make of that? You're spending all this money to get the same result or a worse result. What's the point? You might as well just use the civil servants that you're already given six figures to.
Spending on the top 10 consultants since 2015, almost $1 billion. Almost $1 billion. There you go.
That's a
And like you
nice
said,
chunk of change.
not much improvement. And then the hiring, the government itself has bloated itself with employees as well. So The government sure knows how to spend money, and that's why they keep increasing taxes, because they need more and more money, and the consultants will tell you um, why they need it, I guess. And here's another
Yeah,
one.
that's probably part of that's part of the advice that they'll offer you. You need to spend a bit more money on consultants.
I think one of the things they've done is a really good marketing, um, even in this, right? The show that the flip from the huge Poilievre or conservative lead to a liberal lead in the polls. You know, that's got to be one of the best marketing jobs ever.
It's very influential, isn't it, as well?
There you go. Natural Resources Minister Jonathan Wilkinson's department yesterday adopted California efficiency standards for essential home appliances, and that cost will be passed on to you. And that's hikes heating and cooling costs. And these regulatory actions are necessary at this time for some energy-using products to keep pace with changes that have taken place within Canada and the United States, the department wrote in a regulatory impact analysis statement. The cost will average $276 million a year.
Brilliant.
It assumed the incremental costs for more efficient technology, including product development and production, as well as compliance and administration, are passed on to consumers. Low-income households will face difficulty in buying more efficient devices like gas heaters. Yeah, so there you go. More of this. Canada following California.
I mean, it's a very interesting strategy. I don't see many jurisdictions on the planet that want to imitate California right now.
And I can guarantee you that this story does not get a lot of attention other than Holly Doan, Blacklocks, and us repeating it. This story will not break it into mainstream media, that this policy here will end up costing Canadians about $276 million a year in increased heating and cooling costs.
This is the exact kind of policy that got the Liberals 30 points behind in the polls, isn't it? It's this kind of inability to recognize that
The moment
that there's a cost of living crisis, and that you can't just keep adding things on top. You just can't do it because eventually it will break
and
the back of the average Canadian.
here's their reasoning for it. Adoption of California rules is necessary if Cabinet is to meet its climate targets, given Canada's commitment to reach net zero by 2050, and the fact that in that 2021, Canada's building sector accounted for more than 17% of national emissions, and the industrial sector used most energy. So there you go. We should just stop building and stop our industrial sector, and then we won't have to pay more for appliances, I guess.
Yeah, but obviously you say that and you're not mentioning the benefits. If we do that, then there won't be wildfires or floods anymore. So it's a good idea, isn't it? I mean, obviously, Canada and the Canadian people decide how hot the planet is. That's something that science has established.
Again, sarcasm is real on the Really Big Show. So before you start,
The really big sarcasm.
this one deserves a lot of sarcasm. And again, this one is going to slip through. See if you can find it on mainstream media. See if you can find this story of this increased cost for the Canadian taxpayer during this election. See if it makes it through the cracks.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect that to be the case. And if it did, if some oddball journalist asked this question of Mark Carney or something like that, then all Carney would say in response is something, it'd be like a 3,000 word response in which he says that climate change is an existential crisis and we have to do what we can to, save the planet. And everybody pretty much would be satisfied with that, wouldn't they?
Again, Holly Doan's Blacklocks, well worth your subscription. You can head over to Blacklocks and find these stories. She does a lot of great stuff. They do a lot of the freedom of information stuff. That's where they get this stuff, but not covered a lot by mainstream media. They've spent 10 years fighting the federal government as well, and they've spent about $500,000 fighting the federal government. We really need to get this free the media going. We need to stop funding the media, and we need to get rid of Bill C-18. That's a movement that needs to happen. We need outlets like ourselves and like Holly Doan Blacklocks. We need not to be under the government thumb for funding. And here's another one from Holly Doan. Registry too late for voters. This is something that is supposed to be a public registry of foreign agents that was approved by Parliament 10 months ago and just not ready to go into operation for the election. Imagine that. And that's our Pierre Poilievre asked,
Yeah.
why haven't the Liberals got this foreign agency registry up and running in this very important election?
I think the answer is that they probably didn't get in enough consultants to tell them how to do it.
Yeah. Maybe just like almost $1 billion. That's just crazy. To them, $1 billion here, $1 billion there, and the consultants absolutely love it. And then they talk about spending money in Canada, and I'm going to tell you, most of those consultants do not reside in Canada.
No, they spend their big bucks in places like New York City, don't they? Alongside Brookfield Asset Management nowadays.
And we've got a new thing that we're going to do on the really on now media. We're going to take platform pieces that are introduced, and we're going to do. We did it yesterday. We did it on Poilievre's, and then today we're going to do it on. I think Mark Carney dropped something, and so did Pierre. So we'll do separate shows on that, but we're going to talk a little bit about it right here. So Mark Carney did release a plan to fight crime, protect Canadians, and build safer communities, according to this press release that came out, and then he did a press conference on it too, right? And that's going to be how this is going to be accomplished: is reinvigorate the implementation of the efficient gun buyback program for assault-style weapons, automatically revoke gun license for individuals convicted of violent offenses. That's a good idea. I don't know why we would give them in the first place. Legislate and requirement for RCMP to classify new firearms, increase funding to RCMP's forensic labs, toughen oversight of firearms. It's all about guns, control of guns. And then recruit 1,000 or more RCMP to tackle drug and human trafficking, 1,000 new CBSA officers, increase funding for public prosecution, toughen the criminal code. Well, there's one piece right there, way, way down the list there, toughen the criminal code. Because right now, I think in a Pierre Poilievre thing, that there's one, several criminals down in the Lower Mainland guilty of most of the crimes down there.
Oh, he keeps highlighting there's an infamous individual in Penticton that's been famous for quite a long time now. He keeps referring to him, saying that when he's free, like the crime rate in Penticton just like is noticeably higher just because there's one dude.
We got a clip here to play. You put this in here. I'm going to play this clip here.
Hi, Nujidam Elise, Globe and Mail. My colleagues have a story today about a Liberal candidate's relations with China-friendly groups and a meeting that you also held with a pro-Beijing group. So my question is, why did you meet with this pro-Beijing group, Jiangsu Commerce Council of Canada? And is the party okay with the fact that Liberal candidate Peter Yan has been so close with the Chinese consulate and China-friendly groups, given the public inquiry into foreign interference, says that this is a tactic China uses to exert influence?
Okay, well, I'm sorry, but you can't believe everything you read in the Globe and Mail. So in your question, and I guess in the article in question, you said I had a meeting with whatever your term was, Beijing group. I've never heard of this group, okay? Never heard of this group. Certainly didn't have a set-up meeting with this group. Full stop. So check your sources before you write things like that, okay? Or your colleagues do. I'm a politician. I go to events where there are hundreds and thousands over the course of a day of different people there. That is not a meeting. If somebody happens to be in the room and takes a picture with me, that's not a meeting, okay? First point. Secondly, with respect to Mr. Yun, this is a person who has served his community for decades. This is a person who's deputy commissioner of the police, okay? A person in discharge of those responsibilities meets with a variety of community groups in the community because that's his job. That's his responsibility. We're proud to have him as a candidate, and I honor his service, including on today. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Again,
look, I don't know if we should do it ourselves. Maybe we should find the technology. We have the technology, but instead of Mark Carney doing that, maybe we should use AI so that it's Donald Trump and Donald Trump's voice, but with that transcript. Would it seem out of place? Would it seem like that was like incongruent? Because I really don't think it would. For him to say like, check your sources, and then saying things like, look, stand in a room and then somebody takes a photograph. That's not a meeting. Like, imagine that in a Trump voice. That would work, wouldn't it? And certainly in a Pierre Poilievre voice, Pierre Poilievre, who we're told is this great menace that despises the press and is constantly antagonistic towards journalists. I think it's very evident now, after a couple of weeks or few weeks, if you count, before he became prime minister. It's evident now that Mark Carney has a really weird sort of attitude towards the press, and he's pretty sort of contemptuous towards journalists.
He's very friendly when the questions are the right questions, and he's very aggressive, very Trumpist. And we've said that many times, and very disrespectful to many of the reporters. And he has been like that when he does not like the questions. He's very, very aggressive, condescending, and different things. Yeah, and if you change the face like you said, you would accuse him of being very much like Donald Trump.
Yeah, and look, you're gonna be asked questions like that. You're gonna be asked questions that you don't like. That's kind of just life, That like even people who are important in a much less sort of obvious way, just like even ordinary people, like even if you give people like driving licenses or something, like you're gonna be asked questions all the time, and you're not going to like all of them. And sometimes you're going to have to push back and say, no, actually, this is not correct, and all the rest of it. That is life. I mean, he's 60 years old. How does he not know that yet? That's life. People will challenge you. People will ask you things that upset you or annoy you. You've just got to keep a lid on it. You've got to be calm. You've got to be like a police officer or something like that. You've just got to be cool and calm, and you can be firm and you can be insistent and all the rest of it. But you don't have to resort to ad hominem, and you don't have to be so evidently flustered and furious. I think it's possibly an indication that he has a temper problem.
We got another clip here from Mark Carney here. This has to do with the energy stuff. You don't have it? Oh, there you go. We're going to talk about it later in when we can do the platform stuff. So we're going to blow by that one. We've got Pierre Poilievre's platform, though. Poilievre announced this morning that he plans to cut taxes by $100,000 per home. That plan incentivizes municipalities to cut building taxes while taking the sales tax of $100,000 of savings per home. I mean, that's a big deal for getting homes going, right? So that they announced, on top of axing the sales tax, which they talked about, axing the sales tax on homes under, I think it was $1.3 million. Now they're actually adding to that. So this is on top of it. He announced that his plans to eliminate the sales tax under 1.3, which will now save home buyers up to $65,000. Combined, the two policies will lower the cost of a new home up to $115,000. And taxes don't really add a lot of value to the home. You take that $115,000, it doesn't get you a new dishwasher, a new this or that. It just gets you taxes. So these things it's a big policy, and we'll go break this down a little bit more in detail. But 30% of the new home costs in Ontario and British Columbia now, taxes and development charges. There you go.
I mean, there's an obvious question though, like what is going to happen? What's going to fill that gap in revenue for the various jurisdictions? And this is, it's all well and good talking about tax cuts, but then you open yourself up to the kind of attacks that Poilievre's been getting now from, the NDP, if they still matter, I don't know. But certainly from Mark Carney. Just today, Mark Carney was saying, we're the party that's going to give you dental care and childcare and all the rest of it, and listed all these programs. And then he's saying, once again, it's becoming a kind of theme with Carney. He's saying, while all Pierre Poilievre does is cut and offer tax cuts, and that means that all these services will disappear. I mean, he is kind of opening himself up to that. And that's just one of those weird things, isn't it, about politics? It's like people are generally very upset about the housing market, but then when you try and fix it and do something like this, people will then become upset because this means less tax revenue, and certain like benefits that they've become accustomed to might not be there anymore. So it's kind of a catch-22.
I would answer by saying, well, how are you going to build 500,000 homes? And I got a place where you get $1 billion almost. Cut the consultants. They won't like
Indeed.
that.
Well, yeah. But $1 billion is chump change nowadays, isn't it, in terms of government expenditure? So that's they probably say, oh, we couldn't do anything with that.
The other thing about economics, and this is a big thing when you talk about cuts, if you use money and incentives and tax cuts to incentivize growth, like $100, if it's put into the community and it's put into the right hands, $100 can turn into $1,000 of economic activity. Same thing if you start building homes and the tradesman starts making money. A lot of people start making money and it circulates in the community, and it actually ends up generating more taxes. Tax incentives done the right way end up generating more tax revenue at the end of the day because it generates way more economic activity. The right incentives. Giving out tax dollars for people to stay at home, and that is just dead money, and it doesn't create more things. You know what I mean? Like giving money to seniors who put it in their savings account or put it in their mattress is dead money.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Chinese, a bit different governmental system, but the Chinese have discovered this problem, haven't they? They've been trying to get the Chinese consumer to actually buy stuff for a very long time because they won't do it. That's why it's like, so, the US putting these tariffs on is such a big deal, because China can't survive by itself. That doesn't have that consumption culture. And as a consequence, their economy is kind of hobbled. So it is true, you need it. You need people to spend, and you need that money to kind of like
if you want to stoke
sort of move through the system.
You want to stoke the economy, definitely getting people to spend money and circulate it through the economy is what you need to do. Even like when we talk about Canadian economy, giving money to American firms like McKinsey and Company, the money left the Canadian economy. It does not help the Canadian economy. Those wages are being paid to America. It does not help the local economy. So there's another way to stoke it. If you're going to hire consultants, why aren't they Canadian consultants? We got a clip here to play from Pierre Poilievre on this $100,000 thing. Let's run this clip here.
Housing inflation in the G7 under this Liberal government. And the worst of that inflation happened while Mark Carney was Justin Trudeau's economic advisor. Carney worsened the housing crisis in the United Kingdom, where he printed great sums of money and inflated the costs over there. He's been widely blamed by the British media for the housing crisis in that country, even though the Canadian media continues to cover up his disastrous overseas record.
There you are, just talking about that was when he did that policy, and we're going to go into this policy in more detail later on this morning here, and then yeah, we're just going to leave that one there, and we'll come back to that. Yeah, we'll leave the energy stuff too, and then we got a clip here from Jagmeet Singh. We don't talk a lot about Jagmeet, and he had this is an interesting clip here. That yeah, you don't need that one. The Jagmeet Singh one there, and the orange signs and that. Play that one, Rommel.
We're all gonna jump together. Get ready, everybody. We're gonna show them that we're ready. We're ready to fight. We're ready to win. Here we go. Get ready. Get ready. Get warmed up. Get warmed up. Here we go. Here we go. Let's go. Ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Yes. Yes, thank you so much. The floor is actually shaking. That's all. We're all gonna.
Every day, the NDP create a new record for cringe, don't they? It's so cringe-inducing.
Richard,
Just on I know he's been attacked here because of there's a disabled woman there, and it's been deemed insensitive. I mean, I don't know about that. I think that's probably a load of tripe myself. But just in general, the cringe is just off the charts, isn't it?
he's channeling Richard Simmons right there, and I'm not sure what he's like. I mean, Jagmeet has made a laughing stock out of the NDP party, and maybe it's intentional. Some people are saying because it's folding into the Liberal Party. Did he get? I mean, some people are accusing. Did he get paid out to sell out his party to the Liberals so that they could win this election? It's like seriously, this is beyond ridiculous. Like this is not policy. This is just one of our commenters like, I can't stop laughing. Yeah, because it's beyond ridiculous. Like, I'm not sure what he's trying to do there. Like, I mean, basically take his party to like the green status or less, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you'd think that they actually are in a fight for their lives, aren't they? For the very like
Sure
existence
doesn't
of the
it?
party.
It sure doesn't look like it, does it?
But yeah, but I was going to say it, but it doesn't look like it. He's still coming out with the same old tedious nonsense about somehow it's a conspiracy of billionaires, and it's, this kind of like reheated Marxism from the 90s, from a 90s university campus or something. It's just like nobody's buying that. Nobody is
Jack,
buying what you're selling.
imagine Jack Layton if he could see all the hard work that he put into the NDP party, building that party to almost challenge for like the leadership of Canada to this.
Yeah. I mean, there's just no energy. There's nothing modern. I think that's the thing that I notice most obviously. There's nothing modern about his policies, his campaign, his style, anything. They're all old ideas, and very, very old ideas. And it's a very old-fashioned way of campaigning as well. There's just not, I mean, I kind of almost feel sorry for the NDP and for NDP supporters and NDP members. They must be looking on at this and just thinking like, we're doomed. That they're being failed by their leadership here.
And some of this has to reflect on BC because those two parties are connected. I mean, this looks. Dave, remember David Eby came out and did his little endorsement there. I mean, I don't know.
That was cringe as well. That was
Yeah.
David Eby with his hands in his pockets going like, yeah, you might as well vote for the NDP, I guess. It's like, for God's sake.
Anyway, we got another clip here from Mark Carney talking about freedom of speech, and just watch this clip here.
It was the hinge of fate. Now, that photograph was stolen. Not 50. Oh, that's misguided. That's misguided. That's all right. It's all right. It's all right. We value diversity in this country. We value diversity in this country, unlike the United States of America. You can hold different opinions in this country. It's all right.
Again, another one where actions speak louder than words. Notice the RCMP grabbed the guy and maul him and haul him out. Well, the Mark Carney says that he values his freedom of speech.
I think the most interesting part there, the most important part, is that he said, unlike the United States. He said you can have different opinions here, unlike the United States. I mean, I don't want to speak about it for too long because I'll become an enraged goblin and it won't be useful at all to listen to me. But consult the US Constitution, have a look at something called the First Amendment, and then compare and contrast with Canada. Tell me which country is freer in terms of the opinions that you can hold. I mean, anybody who's honest and has an IQ above about 65 will tell you that it's quite obvious that the United States is vastly freer than Canada in terms of freedom of expression. It's just obvious. It's the most obvious thing in the world.
Yeah, and I would say if Mark Carney was Donald Trump, like treated like the reporters treat Donald Trump in the U.S., he would not survive with the stuff that's in his background. There's no way that he would make it through a Caitlin Collins and stuff like that. Like, there's just no way. And they still take the questions from Caitlin Collins, and she does the work for CNN there, but definitely not getting the rigorous checking of Mark Carney that Trump gets in the United States, even though he acts the same way to the media. And then this freedom of speech, talking about freedom of speech, you're bang on there with the freedom of speech in the U.S. compared to Canada here. And what they're trying to introduce, I think it's Bill C-63.
Well, also on this the announcement today about guns, we didn't even get to that bit, did we? There's a second part there where he started to talk about Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, and other sort of nastiness on the internet, and how he wants to crack down on that, So I mean, that obviously you can look at that and say, well, what's your problem? Why would that be a bad thing? Obviously, in that simplistic description, it doesn't really sound like a bad thing, does it? But in practice, it will end up being something like it is in my land of birth, where just the other day, the Times newspaper released a report, and they found that 12,000 people had been arrested per year in Britain. In 1 year, 12,000 people. So that's like 30 arrests per day because of social media posts. 12. Do you want to live in a country where 12,000 people are arrested every year, put in prison because of things that they write on the internet, on Twitter or Facebook? Because to be completely honest, I don't want to live in a country like that.
Yeah, and I think one of the people had a comment here and said that too much free speech gets you bad things. But so who gets to decide what is free speech and what isn't free speech? That therein lies the danger, right? So you're going to allow the government, just like they do with the media here, which media gets funded and which media doesn't get funded, and then you choke off the other ones. Free the media. Free the media from Bill C-18. Free the media from government funding. If you want a free and independent media, you have to take away that where one party funds the media and the other one won't. And so where do you think the media is going to slant? And then you have the government, the Liberal government, deciding who is media and who is not media. What business does the government have deciding who is media and who is not media?
Absolutely. And do you want to then go one step further and allow a government and a political party and a set of like bureaucrats and mediocre MPs to decide what is and is not offensive? Do you want to get there? Do you want to enter hell, basically?
Do you want? Yeah,
there it is. There's the path. It will take you straight to hell.
Do you want McKinsey and Company deciding who is media and who is not media?
Yeah, I'm sure the consultants will come in. Yeah, we'll get some American consultants to come in. They'll cross the border, lose their own freedom of speech when they do so, and then tell the Liberal Party what to criminalize, what speech to criminalize, and they'll get a few $100 million for the privilege.
We've been trying to get this question to the Liberal Party. Will they drop Bill C-18? Canada, again, the only nation in the G7 that does not allow us, any media outlet, including CBC and CTV, to put their news on social media. While the Liberal Party recognizes that's where most Canadians get their news on social media, and they're even spending millions of dollars now on that platform to get their news on there, because they, with Bill C-18, have banned media outlets from doing it. The only nation in the G7. That's a claim to fame. And when we had wildfires here in our community was put at risk because they couldn't get the information that they needed because of Bill C-18. And no, the Liberal government will not talk about it. Pierre Poilievre says he will repeal Bill C-18. The only thing that Liberals have said is that they will increase the funding for the CBC. Free the media.
I would also add there just quickly there about the wildfires. Like it was even creepier and weirder and worse than what you said, because what they would say, and David Eby even said this, and other people, other sort of like people that should know better, they were saying, oh, well, the BC Wildfire Service, they can still post official information on Facebook. And, the city of Kelowna or whatever, and the fire departments, they can all still post it. So it's even worse because it's like, you don't need the press. You don't need any kind of independent verification of the statements that are released by official bodies. You don't need that. It's fine, because the city of Kelowna or BC Wildfire Service, they've just said, oh no, that there's no fire there, while we are sat there in an office in Kelowna looking at a fire, but we can't post that on Facebook. Instead, you just have to rely on the BC Wildfire Service, who are based in Kamloops or somewhere like that, telling you that there isn't a fire there.
Yeah. Or maybe when all the media is choked off, when there's nobody left except the CBC, then maybe they'll get rid of Bill C-18.
Yeah, perhaps. Well, let's wait and see. Unless they just give CBC another few billion.
There you go. Looks like the Tories are racking up union endorsements. It used to be the other way around. The NDP and the Liberals used to get that, but Pierre Poilievre has racked up 14 trade unions and professional associations, including many police associations, racking up support for Pierre Poilievre's plans. It used to be the other way around. So many things have flipped, eh?
It's a realignment, definitely, and it's the same in the US. Just look at all the unions that have attached themselves to Donald Trump. I mean, anybody that's got a long enough memory or has read history and looked at like the Reagan era, for example, and before that, Richard Nixon, for example, these Republicans, they were not beloved of the unions, put it that way. But that it's completely switched now, and the right-wing party so to speak, is now much more likely to appeal to working class people, basically. That's just the way it's happened. There's been a flip.
Do you know that most people that in their homes, they have to decide what they're spending their money on, right? You know, if you have so much money, you decide whether you're spending it on food or your mortgage or your car or your rent or different things. You have to decide where you spend your money. And wouldn't the money be better spent instead of consultants, $1 billion on consultants, a couple $1 billion on paid media, be better spent on furthering social programs and all those things? Take that $3 billion and spend it on things that are actually building homes, reducing red tape, than spending it on consultants and government-funded media.
Well, I mean, especially when we're going through an era of like very tight finances, really ugly looking balance sheets. Just in BC, like look at the state of the balance sheet in British Columbia. Like the deficit and it's just unbelievable, and to the extent that ratings agencies now downgrade BC's debt. So in a situation like that, I know that's just BC we're talking about. I mean, it's beyond BC. The federal deficit is also bleak. But when you look in that context, every single penny is kind of important, isn't it? And crucial. And every penny that you give to one issue, realistically, that means you're kind of taking it away from somebody else. So it does deserve a lot of scrutiny, I think. Yeah.
Debt servicing in British Columbia alone is bigger than some of the ministries. Just the debt service costs in British Columbia. Think about that. Think about that for a while. This reckless spending and poor spending instead of incentivizing businesses, this reckless spending is causing more deficits and then more money being spent just to service the debt. Who wins in that? Who wins in debt service costs is the bankers. There you go. We got another clip here to play from a former banker, Mark Carney.
From my understanding, some of the campaign was pushing positive narratives about you. Why do you think that China, the PRC, seems to like you? Why are they praising you?
I have absolutely no idea, and I have absolutely no idea, and I think I'll leave it at that.
Catherine Lévesque, National Post.
There you go.
Not a good answer, I don't think. If I was Carney's media man, I would be telling him, don't do that again. Don't answer that question like that again.
The more he talks, the more you can tell when he's looking for answers. The ums and ahs come out pretty bad all the time. Like there's not a lot of stuff. When he's umming and ahhing, that's because he's looking for an answer because he doesn't know what the answer is, or doesn't want to say the actual answer, but he just says, he's looking for an answer.
I think he knows. Yeah, I think he knows what he wants, what he thinks about something. He's been around the block enough times to have an opinion on most things, I would say, and he will certainly have an opinion on that question. But it'll have been drilled into him by media people in the background to be more like a politician and to dodge questions. And I just think there's a kind of he's having this internal struggle, and he doesn't know because he wanted to answer that. I think you could see that. I don't think I'm reading too much into it there. He kind of wanted to answer it, but then it's like his super ego, like the voice inside of his head was saying, no, don't, just shut up. Don't answer this question. But I just feel like the reason that I think it was bad from a media perspective is that this is a really important issue, and this could hurt Carney, and this could hurt his campaign and his credibility with Canadians. And he needs to answer that question. He needs to clear the air on China, because most Canadians are aware that China is, an antagonist of Canada's, that's hostile to Canada. And Carney has, a lot of relationships with pretty powerful people in China, and has had them and had meetings and business deals and whatnot. He needs to sort of clear the air. He needs to talk about it.
You know where else he needs to clear the air? In this next one. Because he announced those building those 500,000 homes, and it's all with, like, not all, but a lot of it's with prefabricated homes and heat pumps. And turns out Brookfield Asset Management made a purchase of a prefab company just recently. So again, more conflict of interest there, possibly. Why won't he disclose?
And this is going to keep happening as well, which is why again, this is something else he needs to get ahead of, as they say in the media world, in the politics world. He needs to get ahead of this issue because this is just going to keep happening. Every policy he announces, there's a very reasonable chance that Brookfield will have some involvement in that sort of sector, whatever it relates to, because Brookfield is a gigantic corporate monster that has its tentacles in every pie on earth, basically, especially this kind of stuff, especially the green stuff. So when he's going to be announcing loads of these policies, and then somebody at the National Post within 2 hours is going to say, "Oh, look, Brookfield also offers this service." It's just going to keep happening, which is why he needs to, again, just like the China thing, he needs to clear the air on
This
this.
this wasn't a modest Brookfield investment either. They're really getting big into building homes. They're big into homes in general. I mean, there was we talked about that story a while back where he said, even in his internal dialogue with Brookfield Asset Management to shareholders, and that they were poised to take advantage of the tight rents and the immigration that was coming into Canada, and this was a great profitable venture for Brookfield in an ability to raise the rent costs for people.
You're missing the best part where they talked about the sweet spot, the
Yeah,
sweet spot
sweet
of
spot. Yeah, he called
expensive
it
housing.
the sweet spot. And then this reminds me of, again, we talked about this a couple of times. It's a Wonderful Life with our friend Jimmy Stewart there, and who is Jim Bailey Bank, the independent bank, versus Mr. Potter. And here we are building these small prefab homes and telling people that is your Canadian dream, that you can have a 300 square foot home that we can bring to you on a truck, and then you can pile it on top of each other. And you don't need a car, you don't need anything. And there you go, there's your house. Good luck.
Yeah.
For your cat,
They
your
should
dog,
call
and your
them,
3 kids, right?
They should call them like Potter homes or something, shouldn't they?
Pottersville is what they called it in the movie. Don't you remember Pottersville?
Yeah, that's why I'm saying they should do it. They should think of a way to do it. Because when it was what was it, Herbert Hoover? He was there was a nickname for Holmes, and it kind of was very bad for his political reputation. I can't remember what it is now. Hooverville or something, wasn't it?
Oh,
Actually, I
yeah.
think that was it, because it
Yeah.
was like shanty towns.
Yeah.
Maybe they should be a Carneyville.
So if you haven't watched It's a Wonderful Life, go ahead and watch it and see if you can find any similarities, and then you can report back to us in the comments. Again, we try to help you learn in this show. We got a bit to get through here. And then Brian Lilly, obviously a very outspoken critic of Mark Carney, says you can't claim to be elbows up when your company HQ moves to New York, your investments are in Bermuda, your taxes are filed in all parts of the world. And this has come up too. They're trying to ask him, when's the last time he paid taxes in Canada? And he won't answer that question either.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, there's more to add to that list. Like, for example, his having two different nationalities other than Canada as well. That's another kind of peculiar thing to have in a prime minister.
Some of this is so surreal, right? Like, like even we're using Mike Myers and talking about two Canadians that haven't lived in Canada for a while, all of a sudden wrapping the flag around themselves. And here's one that's dodged, the company he ran, dodged over $5 billion in taxes. It has this weird looking office in Bermuda. They didn't even spend enough money for a decent office. That's how much they care about even Bermuda, right? They didn't even put any money there.
Well, all we have to do, for me anyway, the most kind of illuminating thing to do, to use Mark Carney's favorite word, is to compare the scrutiny of Mark Carney with the scrutiny of Andrew Scheer. All Andrew Scheer had was a US passport. That was it. He had a passport for America that he got through his dad or something like that, and he hadn't been completely transparent about it. And that was kind of my recollection of that campaign. That was just about like the biggest red mark against his name, wasn't it? It was that he had a US passport. But then Mark Carney is like on another level completely, but there doesn't appear to be any scrutiny of him.
Maybe he's gone so far past that level that he's in a different stratosphere.
Yeah. Well, I do think there's some truth to that. Like, if it's just a little transgression in an otherwise clean record, that can damn you a lot more than like many massive transgressions in a very dirty record.
You don't even know which bone to grab onto. Well, let's shift
Yeah,
gears.
and that's what happens with Trump.
Let's shift gears here a bit to BC. Adrian Dix, who used to be the health minister here in British Columbia, and we had some of the most stringent COVID lockdowns, not to beat Ontario, though. Ontario was definitely the leader in that. But we had the longest running COVID lockdowns. Now he is our environment minister. Or energy minister,
and
sorry. Energy
he's
minister.
all in on
Energy minister.
On all sorts, isn't he?
Same thing as environment minister, yeah, because now he wants to invest $100 million over 2 years in rebate programs for heat pumps in more homes here. So there you go. Carbon tax was a big part of the particular response to the climate action in 2008. So now they're going to spend $100 million. I don't even know where we get the $100 million. Like, we have no money. And the funny thing is, this is just my own personal experience. The funny thing is, when I moved here to Kelowna, my air conditioner wasn't working in the house we bought. And I was convinced to buy a heat pump, and I did buy a heat pump. And because the heat pump runs your air conditioning and supposedly works for your heat as well. But the heat pump only lasted like 5 years. It never would run in the wintertime. And then when I replaced it, maybe it was 7 years. Then when I replaced it, and I was going to replace it with a heat pump because I thought that's what you should do, the HVAC company said to me, don't put a heat pump in. They said that they just don't work in Kelowna because they don't run in the winter. And then every summer when I went to fire it up, it would like, I'd have to flip the breaker like 4 times to free it. And he said, what it is it seizes because it doesn't run, so that whatever the piston in there or whatever seizes, and he tried to boost it by giving it an extra shot of electricity, and it just wouldn't go. So there you go. So I don't have a heat pump anymore because I was recommended not to purchase one. So I now have an air conditioner and a new gas furnace.
I've heard a few similar stories, to be honest, and they're also very expensive as well, aren't they? But I mean, supposedly the technology, at least in theory, is superior to older technologies. But I think that's probably the case with a lot of these technologies, that they're maybe not quite ready for a mass rollout yet.
Yeah, a man who drove a bus into Quebec daycare may have been trying to kill his past, the trial was told. That's one that you put in here, and it's in our 5 things on Kelowna Now. We do the 5 things you need to know every morning too. That's on Kelowna Now, a very popular segment on our site. A man accused of killing 2
I just thought this was a bit nuts. Like a guy's accused of driving a city bus into a daycare, killing 2 kids aged 4 and 5, and hurting, I think, 6 other kids,
yeah,
or several other kids. And he's from Cambodia, and grew up in Cambodia, was an orphan or something like that, and by all accounts had a troubled childhood. And now the defense have called a psychiatrist in, or a psychologist, whatever she calls herself, and she's come in and just started just come out with all this like Freudian gobbledygook about how he was trying to kill his past. And so I just thought, like, why is that in a courtroom? I mean, I suppose you can bring whatever you want in as a defense lawyer, but still, that's just like, I don't know if that, maybe this is just me being a crank, but I thought that was like a bit of an insult to the victims, talking about killing his past. It's like, what are we? Are we in some sort of like, B movie or something like that? Some like misinformed Freudian garbage.
Yeah, I agree. Let's move on to markets though, and we got this. I think Donald Trump likes Christmas or something, trying to turn the stock market into a Christmas tree. Green one day, red the next day. Just another. So it was a record single point gain yesterday, over 2,000 points. Not a record percent gain, because that was owned back in March 24th of 2020 in the COVID-19, like a rebound in the stock market after the market crashed with COVID, and then it had a huge rebound. Yesterday, the biggest single point gain, and then today, it's been down as low as, I think, over 1,700 points. Right now, off about 1,500 points. Yeah, just a volatile day in the stock market. Huge.
But it's been years of this. I think that you're onto something when you talk about how volatility is like your best friend if you want to make money. And I think there are a lot of people that just desperately want this volatility. But just going back to like 2007, 2008, the financial crash, that's kind of like when this mad period began. Although there was also some craziness in 9/11, wasn't there? But it's like, if you look back in the day, if you watch like, I don't know, CNN or something like that in the 90s, or even the calmer periods of this century, people would have like there would be an entire like 60-minute show where they would talk about like a 5 point change in the
Yeah.
Dow Jones, and that was like big news. Like, oh yeah, and the Dow is down 5 points. Like, we're going to hear from this guy, this guy, this guy. We're going to analyze it. It's like, what kind of a crazy world are we living in, right? It's just like thousands of points, and it's literally day to day that it moves thousands of points. It's just madness.
A trader's dream. Not great for investors
Yeah.
who are losing their mind.
Especially if you got inside info, it's glorious, isn't it?
Gold. Gold has been the stalwart, though, hanging into those gains, hanging on to that. We've been talking about gold for a long time. We're probably one of the few outlets that talk about gold. Canadians don't really like gold for some strange reason. I'm a big fan of gold, been a big fan of gold for a long time. And gold is definitely an asset protector. And gold has actually shown why it's an important asset. Bank of Canada does not agree with it, though. Canada, again, one of the few things that claim to fame there when Mark Carney was governor. We sold most of our gold during the Trudeau era, 2015, 2016. We sold most of Canada's gold. Well, we sold all of our gold, really, in that era for around $1,200 an ounce. So there you go. They said gold was an old relic, an old financial instrument that is no longer of value. Turns out, it turns out wrong again.
Well, that attitude is from another era, isn't it? That attitude is from it's like the Obama era of everything's going to be okay and everything's going to be this kind of liberalism forever and we're fine. I mean, no, that was never on the menu, and here we are now, in a crazy world where everything's disordered, and we should have kept the gold.
Gold in Canadian dollars today, right now, 44.16, and I was buying gold around $200 to $300 an ounce in Canadian dollars. So there you go. Bank of Canada, obviously a lot smarter than everybody in the G7.
All of our experts, all of our genius experts in the elite class, they just keep getting it right, don't they? It's just one win after another.
Just killing it. Just absolutely killing it, right?
They're tired of winning.
Tired of winning. The consultants, obviously not getting enough, not giving the right information. So we need more consultants. Maybe they could just slip us a few shekels and we can help them with understanding gold. Bitcoin. Bitcoin. Bitcoin hanging in there like that 80,000. I would expect Bitcoin to make a pretty big move upward once we get past this turmoil here. Bitcoin looks like it's really forming a really good base in this area. We're going to start we did a Bitcoin show a while back when Bitcoin was a lot less than this. We were doing a Bitcoin show. And can't remember that Justin Trudeau made fun of Pierre Poilievre on Bitcoin as well and saying if you put your money in Bitcoin, I think it was around 30,000 an ounce at the time, that you would lose all your money in Bitcoin. Turns out, again, Bitcoin doing better than Trudeau's predictions.
He's not talking about it anymore, though, is he, Poilievre? I think he was a bit scared. He was scared off when he got the heat for that.
Canadian dollar, I think stronger today based on the American dollar being weaker. And that has to do with, like people selling those T-bills. Again, China probably going to exert some pressure on them too, because Japan did. And that got the Americans to smarten up a little bit on their tariffs. And the biggest holder of T-bills would be the Americans. It's not the Canadian dollar gaining strength in this moment. It is the US dollar losing against all the currencies.
Which is kind of what they want as well, isn't it? The Trump people, they do want the dollar to come down a bit to make it easier to export.
There's many people that make the argument that Canada's dollar is artificially suppressed and has been for some time because we are an export nation, and usually export nations try to suppress their dollar because they get cheap labor and they get to most commodities and products are priced in US dollars. So it's a win.
Yeah, well, the Japanese have been accused of that since the 70s? I mean, probably earlier than that, really.
Chinese too.
Their economic miracle was strongly associated with a very cheap yen, wasn't it?
Chinese too, the yuan. And anyway, let's move on to AI and tech as we wrap this up today. Whistleblower claims Meta helped China develop advanced AI to outcompete American companies. That won't be good.
Yeah, this is this woman. She's the one that's written the book, isn't it? And she's been talking about this a lot. And I think she's the one that said, like, Mark Zuckerberg basically begged Xi Jinping to allow Meta into China and offered Xi Jinping the privilege of naming his child and all this kind of malarkey. So, I mean, Zuckerberg, it's certainly true that he's lobbied China. He's had a very close relationship with China. But if that's true, I mean, he would be at risk of prosecution, I imagine, wouldn't he?
Yeah, and in our EV section, Tesla officially begins selling cars, electric vehicles in Saudi Arabia today. They've opened up a few markets, India, Saudi Arabia, and we're going to do a story. We've got this story because we've got Tesla's reaction to this accusation made by the Liberal government. We're going to do that story later today, and then also some of the incitement of violence against Tesla owners here in Canada. I'm going to work it into one big story. So there you go. And then our memes. Well, hey, this is like a Tim Walz thing. Liberals devastated as stock market recovers yesterday. Well, as Tim Walz says, he checks that little app of his and he gets a boost of joy whenever he sees Tesla stock go down in the whole stock market. So not realizing that the state that he governs, a lot of their pension funds were in Tesla stock. Cheering for his own demise. There you go.
That was he should be a consultant for the NDP, shouldn't he? He seems to have that sort of attitude, gaff prone.
He got beat up on CNN pretty good by Jake Tapper there the other day, and he didn't have much answer. Tim, he says he knows that he would fight anybody, and he knows how to fix a truck. So, and he definitely says a lot of negative things about anybody that didn't vote for him and Kamala Harris, taking no responsibility for being kind of like just a goof, just a real goofball. I don't even know how he's governor of Minnesota. Turns out, like when the riots were happening there, he was in the National Guard, and he retired just before his troop was deployed to Iraq. And then when they asked if they would have the National Guard come and help with the riots in Minnesota, he said, why would he want a bunch of 19-year-old cooks to come and do the policing? Not a really good look, right, for the National Guard.
Minnesota is like, it's very pro-Democrat. Or I mean, that's been narrowing lately with Trump. But wasn't it the only state that Ronald Reagan didn't win when he won like absolutely everything in I guess that was 1984, was it? But yeah, it's kind of like hyper Democrat. It has that reputation. So I guess maybe if you just climb to the top of the poll within the Democratic Party, then you will become the governor in a place like that. Maybe that's what happened.
There you go. Anything else you want to add? We're going to come back. We're going to do this platform stuff, and we're going to do some really cool stuff with these platforms because, we're going to try and help people make decisions based on what they think is most important. Because right now, the only time that really the governments want to hear from you is when they need your vote. So, because, like once they put you in those 300 square foot boxes with no cars and anything, they're just going to talk to you every 4 years. Or maybe they even figure out how they could have elections, not, like waste money and time on elections and only have elections every 100 years, kind of like China.
Or maybe they could get some consultants in from McKinsey to conduct a survey, and then the result of that survey will decide who's in power. That sounds pretty sensible, doesn't it?
I would say so. Like, more consultants makes a lot of sense for them. Get it? Sense for them. many cents for them. More consultants makes a lot of sense for the consultants. Not so much for the Canadian taxpayer. I think it's Glenn here that said here in the comments that when he puts his paycheck in his pocket, it just falls through the other side. There's a big hole in his pocket. And
but think of all those wonderful services that you get in return. I mean, over the last 10 or 20 years, are you telling me that services haven't improved dramatically? Everything's better, isn't it? That's what I keep hearing people say. Never been so good.
Record food bank lineups in your great province of Ontario there. You were told to put your keys at the front door, so when they broke into your house, that they wouldn't go through the rest of your house. They would just grab the keys right there at your front door. Why not just leave it running? out in there, so it's nice and warm for when they steal it.
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't want to run the risk of hurting
right, 'cause
a
you're gonna get-
criminal.
But also, if you left it running, you would get a ticket for leaving your vehicle running for over a minute.
Exactly. Right? You wouldn't want to risk that. You wouldn't want to risk destroying the environment.
Your vehicle would be stolen, and you would have a few tickets there waiting for you. They would still probably make you pay those tickets because. I guess the question is, what if a thief steals your vehicle and leaves it running? Do you get the ticket still, or who gets the ticket?
I think that it would only be right if the owner received a ticket in that situation. I mean,
you know what I think
that's
we're going to
fair,
have to do?
isn't it?
I think we'll have to ask the consultants to kind of get through that one because it's going to be way too complex for us to even figure that one out.
Yeah, let's get a team of 23-year-olds and their first job working for McKinsey to spend a few years figuring that out.
If you want to help us here at Now Media, help us repeat the message out there. Free the media. Get rid of Bill C-18 and stop funding media. Let media survive on its own, but it has to be a level playing field for everybody. Like they fund our competition. They literally fund our competition while we don't get the funding. And they've taken away our audience that we earned over 10 years servicing this community of 200,000. They took that away from us without any consultation with us. No consultation, right? No, nothing. Like, I mean, if you look at all these other, for the automakers and all this stuff, they're going to do all these make sure that they stay whole. Nothing for us. Like our revenues are in half, our traffic in half, and yeah, there you go. Free the media.
We should create a flag, shouldn't we, or T-shirts or something.
Free the media. I mean, that's important. We wouldn't have had this Liberal government for 10 years. And maybe it would have been a better Liberal government if the media actually was working and doing their job of holding power accountable. Because that's the real job of media. Not holding one party accountable, holding power accountable. And the people in power need to be held most accountable because they're the ones that get to make the decisions, right? Because people say, oh, well, you're not doing anything for the Conservatives. Just like, well, they're not in power, are they? They're not the ones making decisions.
Indeed.
There you go. That's our show for today. We'll be back later today with some platform review, and I'm supposed to have an interview with a Liberal candidate here today at 10:30, so we'll see if that happens. With that said, we'll see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Help us spread the message. Free the media. Cheers.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.